Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Colonel Fernando Massana and I am the Chief of the Lessons Learned branch at the Portuguese Army Staff Headquarters. Today, together with my team, we are going to introduce to you a knowledge management tool which is called After Action Review, that has been used by the Portuguese Army and by other forces all over the world with improved results regarding learning from experience and improving processes by the implementation of remedial actions to the lessons identified. In fact, since 1991, Portugal has deployed or is still deploying forces to European countries like Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo, and to countries outside of Europe like Lebanon, Iraq and Afghanistan in the Middle East, and even to countries as far as East Timor in Asia or Colombia in South America. However, it's in Africa where the Portuguese presence is stronger, with missions in Mali, Republic of Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, São Tomé and Príncipe, Angola, Mozambique, Somalia and Central African Republic. All these different locations mean different countries, different cultures, different missions, different forces and different procedures, but all of them have in common the use of the After Action Review. So, what is in fact the After Action Review? An After Action Review is a structured review process of an event that allows participating soldiers, leaders and units to discover for themselves what happened during the operation, why it happened and how it can be done better. They provide insights and feedback into strengths and weaknesses from various perspectives, with the aim of correcting the future training or operational deficiencies in order to improve soldier, leaders and unit performance. To do so, we must get the answers to 4 basic questions. What was supposed to happen? What actually happened? What was right or wrong with what happened? And how the task should be done differently the next time. To give you a practical idea of how it works, we are going to use as an example a real operation of the Portuguese contingent on MINUSCA on new mission in Central African Republic without going deep into the operational details. As in any other operations, everything started with the attribution of the mission to the Portuguese Quick Reaction Force, which is followed by some time for the force to elaborate the plan to conduct the operation. When the planning and specific training phases are done, on D-Day, each hour, the operation begins.
Manda uma ponta! Allez, vite, vite, sortez de la maison, sortez de la maison, vite, vite, sortez de la maison, vite, 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 allez. Isso, bora! Já cai. Bora. Aumentando, vamos embora? Bora pra trás, pra trás.
As we used to say in the military, the plan is the very first casualty in any operation. As such, we should expect that these, as any other operation, happen exactly in accordance to the plan. Therefore, after returning to the headquarters, the force commander gathered with his staff and subordinate commanders to conduct the after-action review in order to try to get the answers to the 4 questions I mentioned before and you can read on the screen. While conducting the after-action review, commanders should allow a large number of individuals and leaders to participate in order to gather more of the operational details so they can be recalled and more observations, lessons and best practice can be identified and shared. The after-action review should focus directly on the mission and key operation objectives and should emphasize the level achieved on meeting Army standards rather than pronouncing judgment of success or failure. Let's now focus on the first question: what was supposed to happen? At this stage, by using maps, operational graphics, terrain boards or any other helping tools, the commander, along with the participants, reviews what was supposed to happen based on the commander's intent, the mission, the objectives, and the produced plans and orders for the operation, making sure that all the participants remember the situation before the operation. After that, commander moves to the next stage in order to determine what actually happened during the performance of the operation. A factual and indisputable account is vital to the effectiveness of the discussion that follows. The participants assist in describing the flow of events and discuss the outcomes from their point of view by reviewing, in a logical sequence, the events that happen until establish contact, during and after contact, and also all related events. At this point, the commander must encourage participation and should guide the discussion by using open-ended and leading questions while avoiding yes or no questions. An open-ended question allows the person answering to reply based on what was significant to the mission, to the team, and individually. These type of questions are much less likely to put the participants on a defensive position. Open-ended questions are more effective in finding out what happened. For example, it is better to ask, Sergeant Peterson, what happened when your vehicle reached the assigned position? Than, Sergeant Peterson, why didn't you engage the insurgents to your front? We must keep in mind that at this stage our goal is to clarify what happened and not to get answers to the whys. The same way, the commander should not tell the participants or leaders what was good or bad, but must ensure that specific issues are revealed, both positive and negative in nature. A skillful guidance of the discussion ensures that the after-action review does not gloss over mistakes or unit weaknesses. As the discussion expands and more participants add their perspectives, what really happened starts to become clear. And when that happens, it is time to move to the next stage and try to determine what was right or wrong with what happened. At this stage, the participants review the achieved objectives, the mission's accomplishment, the intent and concept of operation, trying to determine the flaws and risks as well as the measures to mitigate them. By doing so, the participants establish the strong and weak points of their performance. The commander plays a critical role in guiding the discussions, so conclusions reached by participants are doctrinally sound, consistent with Army standards, and relevant to the force's mission. Finally, at the fourth stage, is the time for the participants to identify problems and propose solutions, and who is responsible to implement the identified measures. Leaders at different levels understand that not all tasks have been performed in accordance with the standards and as planned. However, they are aware that it is commander's call to determine exactly how participants will perform differently the next time the task is performed or a similar operation takes place. And this is the reason why the procedures and type of after-action review may vary depending on the type and unit size. There are two types of after-action review, the formal and the informal type. Bigger units with more complex decision-making process may require more time and personnel to staff the proposed measures before the commander decision. These units normally use a formal type of after-action review. On the other hand, smaller units with a faster decision-making process normally use the informal type of after-action review, where the commander takes immediate decision upon the proposed measures and immediately determines who is responsible for the implementation of such measures. With that said, what are the main differences between the formal and informal types of after-action review? The formal after-action reviews are resource-intensive and involve the planning, coordination, and preparation of the site where they take place. Therefore, they take more time, use more complex aids like terrain models, map blow-ups, and information technologies. They are scheduled beforehand and conducted where best supported, and may have external observers and controllers. This type of after-action reviews may be directed by a facilitator, who provides an operation overview and focuses the discussion of the key events and on the main objectives. At the end, the facilitator reviews the key points and issues and summarizes strengths and weaknesses discussed during the after-action review. On the other hand, informal after-action reviews require less preparation and planning. As such, they take less time, use simpler aids like small stones or branches, and they are conducted by the internal chain of command when needed, normally at the vicinities of the operation site. Leaders use informal after-action reviews as on-the-spot coaching tools while reviewing soldiers and unit performance, which is extremely important as all the soldiers are involved. For example, after destroying an enemy observation post during a movement to contact, a squad leader conducts an informal after-action review to make corrections and reinforce strengths using nothing more than pine cones to represent the squad members. By doing so, the squad leader and squad members discuss the contact from start to finish, and this way the squad quickly evaluates their performance against Army standards, identifies their strengths and weaknesses, and decides how to improve their performance for the next action. This way, ideas and solutions that the leader gathers during the informal after-action review can be immediately put in use as the unit continues its mission. Whether formal or informal, the after-action reviews provide feedback for an event that enables soldiers and units to discover for themselves what happened and why. Because soldiers and leaders actively participate in this process, they learn and remember more than they would from simple criticism, making the performance of the unit to improve faster. The final result is a more cohesive and proficient fighting force. By the relevance the after-action reviews have to performance improvement of military units, General Gordon R. Sullivan once stated, "I believe that one of the single most important innovations of the past 20 years, one of the keys to our edge today, is the after-action review. At all levels, the after-action review provides an honest appraisal of our performance and directs our effort to correct shortcomings." End of citation. So far we saw how military units can learn from mistakes, correct those mistakes, and consequently improve its performance by using the after-action review. But the question raises up, is that all? Well, not exactly. Every 6 months, the force is replaced by another force and hands over the mission and the operations to the replacing force. At this point, another question pops up. Shouldn't this new arrived force have access to what the predecessor force learned during its mission in order to avoid to commit the same mistakes and to implement the best practice from the very first beginning? Of course, it does make sense that to happen. And in fact, that happens through the lessons learned process and its database. So let's see how the after-action reviews relate to the lessons learned process. All personnel, regardless of the rank, must understand that they have a responsibility to document, report, and insert observed problems, shortfalls, and successes in the lessons learned database. That process starts by collecting observations using the ODCR template, where O stands for observation, D stands for discussion, C stands for conclusion, and R stands for recommendation. Using the ODCR template to record observations enhances interoperability by allowing information to be shared. An observation is a short factual statement to describe what happened and how that differed from expectations. Or, in some other words, it describes what was supposed to happen and what actually happened. Do these questions sound familiar to you? In fact, we can relate the observation from the ODCR template to the first two questions of the After Action Review template. Also, as in the After Action Review, an observation can be positive if something that was observed worked better than it was expected, or negative if something happened that should not have happened or something did not happen that should have. The discussion explains how and why the observed issue differed from expectations. Reasons for success or failure and the circumstances surrounding the issue are discussed. The discussion relates to the who, what, where, when, why and how questions about the observation. It should explore all the apparent contributory factors, and it can include the history of the event, the context and the environment, and any actions taken to work around a problem should be explained. If a problem could not be solved, it should be explained the reason why. Basically, and making it simpler, with the discussion we try to determine why was there a difference and what was right or wrong with what happened. And this is another point where the ODCR template relates to the After Action Review template. The conclusion is a summary statement of the lesson that has been identified from the experience and the investigation into the root causes of the issues described in the observation and discussion. It is derived in a logical manner from the information contained in the observation and discussion. Basically, we try to conclude what can we learn from the event and determine how the task should be done differently the next time, which relates to the fourth part of the After Action Review template. Finally, the recommendation should outline the suggested remedial action by providing explicit advice on what must be done to repeat the success or to avoid or solve the problem. The recommendation should identify exactly what needs to be changed and how it should be done. It also should propose a suitable action body and should derive directly from the conclusion so that if someone were to follow the recommendation, they would reap the benefit of the learning for themselves and their organization. Basically, in the recommendation, we suggest what can be done to benefit with it and who should do it, which is in a certain way also determining how the task should be done differently the next time. In this session, we saw how a military unit and its members can learn from experience and improve their performance by implementing the use of the knowledge management tool called After Action Review. Then we saw how that knowledge can be shared with some other units, especially the replacement unit, so also its members can learn from the experience of their predecessors in order to avoid to repeat the same mistakes and to implement the identified best practices by accessing the lessons learned database and all the information there is. Both the After Action Review and the lessons learned processes are of extreme importance and mandatory to the military and particularly to the Army. Once their use definitely allow us to save time and resources, increasing the effectiveness, and during operations they can even help to save human lives. We believe that these tools can easily be adapted and used by civilian society, where saving time and resources are also critical parameters to run a business. Therefore, I kindly remind you that today we will be online by VTC running one workshop to show you a practical example of how the After Action Review tool can be applied to a firm or company on the development and manufacturing of a product. Of course, you are all very welcome to attend the workshop. Thank you so much for your attention and stay tuned.